Isn't it poetic? The ones who flourish in shadows, who distort reality and wear masks of virtue, never anticipate that the prey will become the predator. They laugh while weaving their webs, never suspecting that the very threads they spin could tighten around their own necks. But here's the irony. They weren't just toying with you. They were provoking something far greater, something boundless. You weren't the weak link in their little game. You were the divine reckoning they never saw coming. Manipulators are like illusionists, sleight of hand, smoke and mirrors. They don't need brute force when they can use whispers. They construct illusions so intricate that you start questioning the ground beneath your feet. The brilliance of their deception lies in how they never confront directly. They corrode slowly, silently, eroding your sense of self. But here's their greatest miscalculation. They mistake compliance for surrender. Oh, you complied, didn't you? Smiling when you wanted to scream, nodding when your gut twisted in protest. But that wasn't submission. It was strategy. While they played their little games, they failed to notice the storm gathering behind your eyes. They couldn't see that their cruelty wasn't breaking you, it was tempering you. God doesn't send angels to battle shadows, He sharpens blades. And you, my dear, have become sharper than they could ever fathom. Let's unravel their illusions for a moment. Manipulators don't just deceive, they fabricate narratives. They spin tales where you are always the villain, always in debt, always wrong. They cast themselves as the hero, the martyr, the savior, expecting applause for their performance, and for a time you indulged them, didn't you? You played along, letting them bask in their self-appointed brilliance. But even the most convincing stories unravel when truth begins to seep through the cracks. At first it was a whisper, a faint voice in the back of your mind murmuring, "This isn't right. This isn't me." That voice was almost drowned out by their accusations, their manipulations, but it grew louder, didn't it? Louder with every lie they told, louder with every boundary they crossed. And then one day, clarity struck like lightning in a darkened room. You saw them, not as powerful, not as invincible, but as desperate. Their control was an illusion, their strength a mirage. And in that moment, you realized they weren't winning because they were strong. They were winning because you hadn't started fighting back. But fighting back wasn't about revenge. No, that would have been too simple, too predictable. Manipulators thrive on chaos, on emotional reactions. Engaging them on their terms would only feed their hunger, so you didn't fight fire with fire. You fought it with ice. God didn't equip you with rage or vengeance. He armed you with clarity. He gave you discernment, the ability to see through their deception, their schemes, and once you truly saw them, their power crumbled. Discernment is a weapon they cannot counter because it doesn't merely expose their lies, it renders them powerless. But that was only the beginning. God didn't stop there. He gifted you resilience, the ability to withstand their games without breaking. Resilience isn't about being unshaken, it's about rising every time they try to knock you down. It's about refusing to let their venom seep into your soul. And oh, how they despised it. They loathed the way their words no longer cut as deeply, the way their manipulation no longer took hold. They despised the way you began to set boundaries, firm, unyielding barriers they could no longer cross. To a manipulator, boundaries are prison bars. And you, my dear, became the warden of your own freedom. Here's what they failed to comprehend. Every wound they inflicted was a lesson. Every betrayal taught you where to build your walls. Every lie revealed how to guard your truth. And slowly, without them realizing it, you were transforming. You were no longer their victim. You were becoming their reckoning. They didn't just underestimate you. They underestimated the forces protecting you. God doesn't arm the weak for mere survival. He equips them for victory. Every scar they left on you became a badge of wisdom. Every tear was a testament to your strength. And now you wield an arsenal they can't begin to understand. And let's not forget their favorite weapon, guilt. They tried to shackle you with it, didn't they? Tried to make you feel responsible for their misery, their failures, their unhappiness. But guilt only works if you accept it. The moment you saw through their facade, their weapon turned into dead weight, dragging them down instead of you. Then came the most powerful gift God granted you, your voice. Not the hesitant, trembling voice they had silenced for so long, but the one forged in fire, tempered in truth. Your voice didn't need to scream or plead. It carried a quiet authority that shook their foundations. Truth is their kryptonite. It dismantles their illusions, shatters their narratives, strips away their control. And once you wielded it, they scrambled. They tried more lies, more guilt, more manipulation, but it was too late. The fortress had been built. And what about forgiveness? The final, unexpected strike, but not the kind of forgiveness they were hoping for. Not the naive, let's go back to how things were kind. No, this was a severing, a clean break. You didn't forgive them to release them. You forgave them to free yourself. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate act of defiance. It says, you no longer control me. Your chains are broken. Your power is gone. And as you walked away, leaving them to the wreckage of their own making, you felt something you hadn't in a long time. Peace. But manipulators are persistent, aren't they? Like rats on a sinking ship. They claw and scrape, searching for another way in. They test your boundaries, hoping for a crack. But you've already reinforced your defenses, haven't you? You've studied their playbook, and you're no longer playing their game. The battle may not be over, but the war, you've already won, because now you see them for what they truly are. Hollow, powerless, afraid. They claw at the edges of your resolve, hoping, praying for a sliver of weakness. Manipulators are gamblers who can't leave the table, forever chasing a victory they'll never grasp. But the game has changed. The deck is no longer stacked in their favor, and the dealer is no longer asleep. You've dismantled their tactics, unraveled their every move. You know the rhythm of their deception, the melody of their manipulation, and now you conduct the symphony. Their power was never real. It was borrowed, stolen from your moments of doubt. But doubt is a shadow, and shadows vanish when the light of truth shines. And your truth, it now burns brighter than they ever imagined. Oh, how they loathe the silence. To a manipulator, silence is deafening, a void they cannot control. When you stopped engaging, stopped feeding their chaos, they panicked. They resorted to louder accusations, more elaborate traps, desperate for a reaction. But nothing but the cold stillness of a battlefield where their weapons no longer work. It's almost amusing watching them flail, watching their confidence crumble beneath the weight of their own deceit. You see, manipulators need an audience, and without one, they are nothing more than bad actors in an empty theater. But this was never about revenge. No, revenge would mean you're still tethered to their game. This was about liberation. This was about reclaiming your power and wielding it not to destroy them, but to build yourself into something untouchable. And you know how it concludes. The strength God granted you isn't merely to walk away, but to stand firm, to hold your ground. They may attempt to creep back in to test your defenses, but each time they do, they'll find that the fortress is mightier, the walls taller, the gates unbreakable. Manipulators thrive in disorder, but you've chosen a path of structure. They thrive on control, but you've embraced freedom. They feed off your fear, but you've chosen faith. And faith, true, unwavering faith, is a force they can't even comprehend, let alone defeat. You've become their ultimate nightmare, someone they can't manipulate, someone who sees through their illusion and doesn't waver. And oh, how it unnerves them. They'll whisper to themselves that you've changed, that you've turned cold, unfeeling. But you know the truth. You haven't grown cold. You've gained clarity. Clarity is their downfall. When you perceive them for what they truly are, their power dissolves. They're no longer the puppeteer pulling strings. They are the puppet, flailing to the rhythm of their own desperation. And as you ascend, they plummet. Their kingdom built on deception crumbles beneath the weight of your truth. Their once intricate schemes now appear childish, transparent. You don't need to expose them to the world. They'll expose themselves. Their masks will slip, their deceptions will unravel, and the truth will stand in stark contrast. But here's the twist they never saw coming. You don't just endure, you flourish. You take the lessons they inadvertently taught you, the resilience, the perception, the fortitude, and you wield them as tools for a life they can't taint. It's almost poetic how their attempts to shatter you only forged you into something stronger. Every manipulation, every betrayal, every word designed to wound, they weren't destroying you, they were refining you, like steel in a relentless fire. And now you radiate with a brilliance they can't dim, a strength they can't match. But let's not pretend it was easy. No, the road to this strength was paved with agony, with tears, with nights spent questioning everything. But God never promises ease. He promises victory. And victory, my dear, is precisely what you've attained. You are now armed with something they will never own: grace. Grace to forgive but never forget, to move forward without glancing back. Grace is not weakness. It is the ultimate expression of power. It declares, you no longer control me. Your words, your actions, your schemes, they hold no power over me. And as you walk away from their chaos, you carry with you the most potent weapon: peace. Not the fragile peace of avoidance, but the unshakable peace that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. They'll watch you leave and they'll feel it. That gnawing, relentless fear of their own insignificance, their own powerlessness, fear of the truth that you now carry like a torch, a truth they can't extinguish. And when they're left alone in the ruins of their own making, they'll finally understand. They weren't fighting you, they were fighting something far greater. You didn't just silence the manipulators. You became a force they'll never dare challenge again. And now, we stand here at the edge of the world they constructed, a house of cards trembling in the wind. Oh, they thought they were untouchable, didn't they? Masters of their craft. They believed their web of lies was so elaborate, so indestructible that you'd be ensnared forever. But webs are fragile, aren't they? One sharp blade, one resolute hand, and the entire structure collapses into dust. What they never grasp, what manipulators will never comprehend, is that their power is a mirage. They don't command respect. They don't inspire loyalty. All they wield is fear, and fear is an unreliable master. Once you stop trembling, once you cease reacting, they are left with nothing but their own hollow echoes. And here's the irony. The very traits they exploited to control you, your kindness, your empathy, your trust, have now become your weapons. Kindness, not as a weakness, but as a blade slicing through their falsehoods. Empathy, not as a shackle, but as a mirror reflecting their true selves back at them. And trust? Trust has been reforged into something they cannot corrupt, a trust in yourself, unshakable, immovable. Oh, how they'll writhe now, like cornered beasts, lashing out in desperation. They'll hurl every trick, every deception, every ounce of venom they have left. But it won't work. You've seen beyond their mask. You've gazed into the abyss they call a soul and found it empty. They wanted you to live in fear. They wanted you to second-guess every thought, every decision. But now the roles have reversed. You have become the fear they can't escape. Not because you seek revenge. No, revenge is a trap, a cycle that keeps you bound to them. You have become their fear because you are free. And true freedom is the one thing they can never control. It's the one thing that renders them powerless. You have shattered their cycle, broken their illusion, and walked away with something they will never possess. But peace does not equate to passivity. No, peace is a weapon of its own. It is the calm amidst the storm, the unwavering resolve that no amount of manipulation can penetrate. When you are at peace, their chaos loses its grip. Their words, their actions, they ricochet off you like arrows against armor. But let's not overlook the final act. Manipulators always have one last gambit, one final desperate ploy to reclaim dominance. They'll beg, they'll bargain, they'll paint themselves as the victims, as misunderstood souls merely trying to survive. And for a fleeting moment you might feel the pull of your old self, the instinct to rescue, to mend, to believe. But then you'll remember the lies, the suffering, the nights spent questioning your worth. You'll remember how they twisted your kindness, weaponized your trust, and left you doubting the very essence of who you are. And in that instant, the enchantment will break, because you've seen the truth, haven't you? They don't seek redemption. They don't long for reconciliation. They crave control. And control is something they will never wield over you again. You are the weapon now, not one that strikes in anger, but one that stands firm against the storm, the kind that doesn't need to fight because the battle was won the moment you chose yourself over their deception. And as you walk away, leaving them in the wreckage of their own making, you'll feel it. That weight lifting from your shoulders, that lightness in your step. It is the sensation of chains breaking, the liberation of reclaiming yourself. It is the feeling of stepping into your own power, unafraid, unstoppable. And as their charade collapses, as the stage fades and the audience disperses, they are left alone. Alone with their deceit, their plots, their hollow triumphs. And you step into the light, carrying a peace they will never fathom and a strength they will never surpass. You were once the puppet, but now you are the master. And they will spend the rest of their days haunted by the one thing they never expected: the silence.